Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 17.
This isn't a process of negating your feelings. If you're angry, if you don't like how someone's treating you, you're angry, be angry and say, screw this and get the hell away from it. Be angry. Emotions are great things that cause actions. Like, you get fed up enough, you start making changes, right? But the thing that I can own is I can understand that my feelings are results of what I believe. And the only way I would be angry is holding on to some negative belief about myself. That's where our emotions come from, based on our subconscious beliefs.
I'm actually really excited for today's episode. I know I say that about pretty much every episode,
Sure.
but
You mean it this time. Yeah.
This time.
That's what I say too. Clients. Yeah.
So Steve Flansbaum is a licensed mental health counselor, an NASM certified personal trainer, and has earned his master's in professional counseling in theory. You can visit his website by going to steveflansbaum.com. I'm just going to spell that.
Sure.
STEVFLANSBAUM.com. And also you can check out the show notes on our website, learntruehealth.com, for the links and more information about today's episode. So Steve, you specialize in behavioral psychology, addiction, exercise science, nutrition in regards to behavior patterns, which is, that's interesting. Mental disorders such as depression, anxiety, addiction, eating disorders, body image and body dysmorphia.
Yeah.
Changing bad habits and ideas around willpower, which, willpower is a whole episode in and of itself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Meditation and mindfulness, spirituality and philosophy. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
I love your bio. You've got to go to Steve's website. It's a beautiful bio that he wrote. It's really written from the heart, and you share a bit about your past struggle with addiction and your evolution as a man, both personally and professionally. On your website, I found a particular paragraph in your bio that really moved me. You said, "I love what I do. Not being a personal trainer or mental health therapist, these are credentials, but aren't really what I do. What I really do is create a space where others can feel safe being who they are, no matter where they are, no matter how they are. I believe that any judgments I have around another are about me, and I am dedicated to understanding my own bias and defects as to not project them outward. When I am with a client, it's about them. It's about their story. I see myself as an invited guest, and I take it seriously. I work to leave any place I've been invited a little better than how I found it. My job forces me to develop personally, and I love that I can enhance my personal life based on my interactions at work." If everyone followed this principle, I believe the world would be a much more better place. We'd be much more fulfilled.
Easier said than done. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful. So go ahead and share a bit with us and with our listeners about how you came to be. How did you fall into this line of work?
Well, I fell into it hard. I kind of nosedived into this thing. So I grew up with my own problems. I come from a family with drug and alcohol addiction. It's something that's rampant in my family. And when I was 16, started drinking, using drugs. Ironically, I was actually one of the last people in my circle of friends to really start using. Like, I was really against it, watching my friends. But anyway, I finally, you're around it enough. You start, you're like, this isn't that big a deal. Start doing it. And I just got hooked pretty much immediately, whereas other people, it was kind of like, you're young, it's a social thing, so on and so forth. And it took off really quickly from there. I spent about 10 years battling drugs and alcohol. I would say for 8 of those years, I was very high functioning, if you can even say that. Like, I got a business degree, I had jobs, I was in relationships, I paid my bills. I look back now, and that's not the word I would use. I wouldn't say that I was functioning at all. But the last 2 years, I found Oxycontin, which is basically synthetic heroin. It's a pain medication, very strong. It's, a pure opiate as opposed to some other moderate painkillers. And that changed everything. That really took me, I mean, it basically turned me into a criminal, like in a hurry. And so I was sitting at my desk. I was working for this headhunting firm. I was recruiting software engineers in the Silicon Valley in the Bay Area. And I came in, and I guess I had what you would call a moment of clarity, and it was like, I can't do this anymore. And I got up and I left from my desk, called my parents, told them, what was going on. And within a day, I was on a flight to Arizona, and I spent 5 months in inpatient rehab. Best thing that's ever happened to me. And I'd already been a personal trainer before that, but it was such a mind-blowing experience. I mean, I was so certain about like what I believed about myself as a person and what I believed about the world, and it was so mind-blowing to open all that up that I just became incredibly passionate, about mental health and philosophy. And so I went back to school for my master's degree, and now I'm here. Yeah.
Wow. And so how long have you been practicing as a therapist?
So I've been in mental health for probably about 5 years. As far as being licensed, I just got my formal license over the last year. But I've done formal therapy, so you can do therapy at places under the license of the facility. So I guess you would say I've been practicing formal therapy for about 3 years.
Got it.
Yeah.
I hear, doesn't it take something like 10,000 hours to get your license?
It depends on what you're working towards. There's different, like in the state of Washington, I needed 1,000 hours for my master's degree, and then I needed 3,000 additional hours to get my full licensure, which I'm just now completing. So they basically give you a license, an associate license, and then you gain another 3,000 hours, take a national exam, and then they'll give you the full license. So I'm going through that process right now. Over the next few weeks, I'll be finally done with all that, and then be completely independent.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I'm independent now. I have a mentor and a supervisor who technically, has the liability on her. But I'm still able to work independently, given what I have now.
And so you have this really unique perspective because you understand the body, the physiology of the body as a personal trainer, and then you understand the mind and emotions and the unconscious and how we sort of run unconscious programs, and you understand a lot of that because of your mental health, and you've been merging the two, understanding people's physical, like helping people with weight loss through their mind. You have a course coming up.
I do, yeah. I have a workshop.
You have a workshop coming up. Tell us a bit about your workshop.
So it's my signature workshop. I've done it numerous times already. I've been doing it for the last couple years. It's called Thinking Your Way into a Thinner Body. We spend so much of our time focused on exercise and nutrition. Those have become the scapegoats of weight loss and physical health, that we don't even take the time to consider the thinking that drives the decisions that create these behaviors. So this is a workshop. It's really designed to understand that our weight is just a symptom of our behaviors. Like, there's two basic causes for weight. Most people attribute their weight to genetics and what they do, right? So you got biologies and behavior. And obviously I don't focus on the biology so much. I mean, I do a little bit in regards to like how it relates to it. My focus is on behaviors, that half. And so, if you really look at where a behavior comes from, it all starts in the subconscious, works through our conscious mind, and projects outward. So I'm trying to cut this thing off at the source, basically. If weight is a symptom of my behavior, and my behavior is a symptom of what I consciously think, and what I consciously think is a symptom of what I subconsciously believe, and that's all based on how I interpret the information around me, then it's like, why not cut this thing off at the cause? So this is a workshop designed at identifying what it is in terms of what we believe about ourselves and about the world around us, and really interacting with that, the cause. Yeah.
So, and how long have you been doing this course for?
2 years. This is a program I've developed over the last 3 years, and so it's really taken form over the last 1.5 to 2 years, I would say. It's a lot of ideas that finally were kind of stuck together into a process that people could really, understand and constructively work with, which is why I'm working now on the workbook to go with that, because now it has a constructive piece. It's so hard at this stuff. I mean, it's all subjective experience.
Right.
And so you're trying to create a language for people that, we all know it's there because we experience it, but we can't necessarily, we can't work with something without it being objective, right? Like my knowledge is dependent upon the object known. So I can only know as much about this water bottle as having this water bottle to study from. And so with this stuff, unless we give it shape and form, we can't begin to study it and alter it. And so that's what this workshop is taking this subjective experience and giving it an objective feel, where we can get our hands dirty and we can break it apart and then we can start piecing this thing back together the way that we want to. Yeah.
Do you find that is really helping people like with their blind spot? Like would it's just out of reach. It's easy to see other people's blind spots, but you're helping them see their own.
Well, yeah. We have taken this subject matter of weight loss and just really have screwed it up. And we've made it so complicated. And we tend to do this as human beings. We complicate things and we tend to add to the problem out of, our own fear and everything. It's like most people complain like their biggest problem right now is time, right? They're so overcommitted. And so the first thing they do is they obligate themselves to go to the gym 5 days a week. Now you have 5 extra hours a week of stuff to go do, which doesn't help the problem at all, because the problem is you never had time. And rather than starting to cut things off their schedule, I mean, the first thing they do is stack more stuff on top of it. So I'm trying to get people to just take a step back and look at how does this stuff make sense, right? I mean, what's really driving the problem? Because my habits are just an automatic response to my environment. That's what a habit is, okay? If I want to change my habits, I need to change the environment, so I'm not automatically responding in that way, right? I'm not going to run and get quick foods, which are usually unhealthy, if I have time to do something different. But if I had no time, why would I change that habit, right? So I just want to cut this thing off at the source, so to speak.
Yeah. You want to work at the root cause. You really are working holistically. I know naturopathic doctors look to the root cause when they see symptoms. So you're saying a weight issue is a symptom. It's not the problem. Let's find what the cause is. So like the weight issue is the smoke. The habits are the smoke. Where's the fire? Let's put out the fire.
Yep. And I would even look at it. I look, there are symptoms on top of symptoms. Like the weight is the result. It's not even the symptom.
Okay.
Like the symptom is really the habits, right? That's what creates the result. And yes, exercise and nutrition, but ultimately the habits associated with those two things have to do with how our life is set up. And our life is set up based on what we believe about ourselves and about the world, right? I mean, a lot of people are married and in significant relationships, which have a huge impact on their lifestyle. And so you get a lot of people that don't want to bother like their spouse or don't want to ask for help. And it's based on these beliefs that they hold that it's like wrong or it's bad. And so if you're going to believe that, you're not going to change it, right? You have to alter the way you look at something and what you believe about it to actually make an actionable impact on changing your environment. So it's layered in that way.
You're completely speaking my language, because I've been thinking, I just gave birth to my baby in the last year, and my body got back to the place where my chiropractor said, okay, go to the gym. And then it was like, okay, I got to go to the gym 10 days a week. It's just
right,
like,
yeah.
And you're right. I wasn't taking anything away from my schedule or looking at it. I was just piling things onto it, already busy. I'm a career woman. I'm a businesswoman. I'm now a mom, and now I've got another responsibility, which is go to the gym 1,000,000 times a week, without looking at the root of what's going on with the schedule. What are my beliefs around that? And so it became overwhelm.
Well, you're conditioned to think that way. You're conditioned to think if you've got some weight to lose, that it's because you're lazy, it's because you have no control, it's because you're undisciplined, it's because you have no willpower. And so the way to solve those issues and to not be that, because that's bad and wrong, is to go out and kill yourself. And it's really insanity. I mean,
Right. Because while you're pumping away at the gym, you're thinking, God, I'm not doing this right. I should be doing it more.
It's not enough.
It's not enough. It's not enough. It's never enough.
Yep.
Yeah. Because that's the root. That's the belief system.
Oh, and it's penance, right?
Yes.
You have done something wrong. This is bad. You should feel guilty, and you need to go suffer the consequences. And
Yeah.
if we were watching the relationship between you and yourself, like we would watch a couple, right? And we saw the way you treated you, the way you treated this significant other of yours. I mean, the police would probably be called. I mean, the way we have relationships with ourselves. I mean, it's abusive.
We're brutal.
It's abusive, right? And we see it outwardly. I mean, there's no wonder that we're so disgusted with it, is because we really want to break free of that. You know, when we see it outwardly, it's very obvious. But with ourselves, it's like we're conditioned to think that that's how we should be behaving, right? You've done something wrong. You should be paying the consequences. You should feel bad. And once you've paid enough, I mean, maybe you can start believing in yourself. You know, it's very backwards.
That is very backwards.
Yeah.
So there's a statistic that 70% of adult Americans are on at least one prescription medication, and a significant percentage of that is pain medication. Both because people who actually are in pain, but then there's also a mental pain, like Dr. Johnny Sarno says in the book Healing Back Pain. He actually uncovers that a lot of chronic pain is linked to a mental or an emotional issue. The root cause is mental or emotional, and because we're so suppressing, it's showing up as chronic pain.
Right.
So if people are in pain, majority of Americans are on prescription medication. A majority of Americans have an idea that they're overweight, and they're listening now, and they want to do something about it. What are like the first steps they can take to begin to shift their mindset?
Well, I think the first thing is to shift your mindset, right? I mean, ultimately, attitude is everything. You have to be open to the idea that, you deserve it, that nothing wrong is happening, that, we usually when there's something dysfunctional going on within us, it carries this adolescent attitude, and during that phase in our life, we believe that nobody understands what we're going through, right? And it's like when it comes down to us, we should know better. And the truth is that, at least 2/3 of the population is overweight, and at least 1/3 of the population is obese. And so there's a huge thing going on here. You don't have to feel bad about it. There's plenty of people dealing with it. And if we can, the biggest issue blocking us is our own shame. That's what stops us from getting help. That's what stops us from learning new things. For whatever reason, we have this idea in our head that we should know how to take care of ourselves. But most people wouldn't be upset with themselves for not knowing how to fly a plane, right? They wouldn't take it personal because they don't know how to fly a plane. They've never taken a class. But it's like most people aren't doctors of medicine. Most people aren't personal trainers. Most people aren't licensed therapists, right? So it's like, why do you think you should be an expert on health when you have no background and understanding? So the first thing is just to let go of all that. But that's really the biggest thing, is attitude is everything. If you can give yourself the break, show yourself a little bit of love, that's going to take you to the second step, which is getting some support around you, right? Because you have to learn some things. You need an environment around you that supports your development and growth. Like, we're not meant to carry the weight of the world on our own, no pun intended. So the biggest thing that I've done in my own recovery for 6 years is I've surrounded myself with incredible people. Just incredible supportive people. And ultimately, that's all I ever need. When stuff happens, when things go wrong, because I have that, things are always okay. And that would be the biggest thing I would tell people, is to get support around them. If you don't feel comfortable talking to the people around you about this thing that you want to work on, or this thing you want to address, don't be around them. be around somebody else. You should feel okay talking about this stuff. You don't have to tell the world what you're doing, but you're going to want at least one person that you can be like, hey, this is what's going on, right?
Have a good sounding board.
You got to have somebody around you. I mean, it's really difficult to take it on your own. It really is,
Yeah.
Because it's a lot to take on. This isn't some small thing. We've been conditioned to believe this is quick and easy, right? And because it's quick and easy and you're not doing it, there's something wrong with you. I mean, the weight
Right.
loss industry is a $60 billion a year industry, and they are built, they make their money based off your idea that you're stupid for not being able to handle it. I mean, that's how they make their money. And so this is not an easy thing. This is a very difficult thing. It can be very simple, but it's very difficult. I mean, 3 to 5% of the people that try to lose weight are going to do it. They're actually going to lose the weight and they're going to keep it off. And that's true for any behavioral change, drug addiction, people getting sober, people quitting smoking, people resolving depression or anxiety. I mean, any behavioral change carries a statistic of 3 to 5% success rate.
Wow. So what kind of success rate do you get?
For my clients? Oh, that's a great question. I'd say it's probably 20%. I mean, the people that stick with it get well, period. I mean, that's everything, is sticking with it.
What do you think the differentiating factor is between those that stick with it and those that don't?
That's a great question. I think ultimately the people that stick with it, that's a really good question. I would say it's humility, is the biggest thing. It's really difficult. I mean, if you really want to change, you have to be willing to say that the person that you are, you're not happy with. And that's hard to embrace that, because ultimately most people are trying to lose weight, but they don't want to change because they don't like how that makes them feel, right? Because it makes them feel like whatever they were doing, was wrong or bad or this and the other. And so you really have to be okay with saying, hey, I don't want to be who I am anymore because I want more. And so it takes a lot of, it's a tough pill to swallow. We talk about dropping that shame, but there's that balance, and we have to be willing to say that, like, hey, I'm not perfect. My way is not working. It doesn't have to be your fault, but it is your problem. And a lot of people have a hard time, like, accepting that they have a problem, so to speak, right?
It sounds like they have to own it, but not hold it against themselves, not punish themselves for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can't change anything I don't have power over. So if I'm a victim to it, I'm not going to be able to change anything at all. But if I can own it and say, like, the biggest shock to me, I remember I was about 30 days into treatment. And my mentality was like everybody else's mentality. I went into treatment thinking, okay, I need to stop doing drugs. And then, like, I'm going to go back to my life. And then, somebody shared with me, it's like, drugs aren't your problem. Like, you are your problem. And that just really blew my mind. And it changed everything. And it was a very tough pill to swallow. Because it was like, oh, like, this is about me, right? These drugs, just like the weight, this is just a symptom. This is what's happening based on what I'm doing. But ultimately, like, I'm at the core of this thing. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So share with us some stories of success that you've had in the last few years with your program.
Yeah, I'll share one really recently. I have a client right now that's just absolutely, she's about to get on stage in a few weeks at the Emerald Cup here locally. I've had some clients that have lost over 100 pounds, right? Which is amazing. And so when you look at this client, this person's lost 40 pounds. That's an incredible, significant change. And not only that, you look at the before and after picture of this person. It's a different person. I thought when I met this person, I thought she was in her 50s. This is a 40-year-old person, and now she looks like she's, in her early 30s. I mean, just the color of her skin, the smile on her face, everything. I mean, she just has really done the work. And 40 pounds it's become so normal in our culture. 30 to 40 pounds seems like nothing. Like most people have that to lose, but it is a significant amount of weight. I mean, it's not some small thing. I mean, most people I ask, I say, how many people do you know have really like changed their body? Like really changed their body? And most people can't name a person because it's rare that somebody was this way and then is now this way, right? I mean, you know some people that have maybe like fluctuated some weight, but this person has altered the composition of her body, and she's done it because she's teachable. She's done it because she's got humility. She's done it because she's had the courage to look in and embrace this thing. It takes a ton of courage to look under the hood. You know, a lot of people are scared to look under it because they think if they see something they don't like, you know, they're going to be forced and shamed into doing something about it. But just because you find something doesn't mean you have to do anything about it. Like, you do something about it when you're ready. But we don't have to hide from it either. You know, there's a lot of power in at least just acknowledging what's going on. Doesn't mean you have to like feel bad because you haven't changed it. I mean, you take on what you take on when you can, you know. Anyway, your original question. So that would be my most recent example. I had another client, reminds me a lot of this current one. What I love about these clients is not only has their body completely transformed, but this current client has gone back to school, right? I mean, she's changing her entire lifestyle. The client I had before lost about 40 pounds, got on stage too, very similar, and I think that's why they remind me of each other. But she was in business, she was in marketing. Now she teaches exotic pole dancing for fitness, you know, helping women. She does like interpretive dance, and it's like, it's very seductive, and it's really quite beautiful. But I mean, this is her outlet of expression, and that's what she wanted. And she went from making this nice steady paycheck of like 60, 70 grand a year to going out in the trenches of the health and fitness world, which, you know, can be really hard sometimes. And she does classes and independent things. She got out of this really abusive relationship during that time, and now she's with this boyfriend of hers who's an incredible person. I've met him, and they're so happy, and they live together. I mean, what I love about it is I see these people, the people that really do it, change their lives. You know, not their body, they change their lives. And not everybody's going to have to like get divorced or break up or do this. Like, the current person is still married and happily, but it's definitely going to have an impact on your environment, because it's the only way to really truly change. I mean, your environment is a reflection of you, and you're a reflection of your environment. And so you can't just change one. Like, ultimately, both of them are going to have to change. Yeah.
So we create our life, but we teach people how to treat us through the boundaries we enforce, or through the boundaries we don't enforce. And ultimately, we teach our partner and our family how to treat us. So for those who are deep into relationships, like deep into a marriage, where they've decided in their mind that they can't change something, like they can't make the time to go to the gym or make the time to cook whole food ingredients instead of get takeout, or they can't go on diet because they would be shamed, or they'd be, you know, they predict that their partner will treat them a certain way.
Yeah.
So they feel like they're stuck in a scenario in which they have negative reinforcement or negative sabotage externally from their family members. How would you go about helping them to teach their family how to treat them in a new way and to enforce new healthy boundaries?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, that's such a difficult thing. Relationships are so important. Freud, for how ridiculous Freud sounds from time to time, you know, one thing I love that he says is that dysfunction, all dysfunction comes from a person's inability to differentiate themselves from others, right? And most people come from some sort of family system or relationship system. And when you start changing, that impacts the system, and people don't like that, because now all of a sudden they're stuck with themselves. They have to look at themselves. It forces them to change. And so you can expect to get resistance from your environment, because, you know, your environment is no different than you. I mean, it likes to be in automatic mode, right? It would rather not have to do anything and just hang out than wake up and do something. But It's very difficult. I would say that's like probably the number one lifestyle factor that blocks people. You have to, I think the first thing you have to do is you have to really protect this thing. You have to almost, I don't want to use the word hide, but you gotta have something for you. And your significant other doesn't have to know everything that you're doing. It's the way we live, but it's not a requirement. It's okay. It's okay to have something for you. And I think the more you protect it, the more you trust yourself. And the more you trust yourself, you start to trust others. And I think that gradually starts to impact your relationships. So if you don't feel comfortable sharing it with a significant other, which a lot of people don't, I would say to honor your feeling. I mean, what's interesting is most of us are like so hung up on the reality of things, right? But we operate on the subjective part of our lives, but we fight it so much. I mean, these feelings come up, they're obviously there. We all know they're there, right? It doesn't mean they're true, but they're real. And so rather than listen to it and work with it, we tend to like shame ourselves and try to plow through it, right? It's like you should be walking through fear and you should be this and you should be that. And ultimately start harming themselves more and more. They don't trust themselves because they know like every time they're feeling uncomfortable, they're going to throw themselves in the middle of the uncomfortableness, right? So you have to start listening to yourself. And I think that really transcends into your relationships. Fear is an incredible energy that our body sends us to have an appropriate response. It's telling us to protect ourselves. And you're never going to trust yourself if you never listen to your feelings. And I think that's going to have the biggest impact on the relationships. People are going to start noticing what you're doing. And because you're not projecting it outward, there's no defense mechanism going off, right, in your partner. I mean, we tend to project. And that's what creates these explosions. It's because you're throwing all your stuff at them, and so they're going to go into automatic defense mode. And so when you own your space and start working your space, their guard goes down, right? And all of a sudden they start working their own space. And I think those things just naturally meet.
Right, like using the language I instead of they. So, or you made me angry. You did this to me. You say, I felt angry when you did. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, you're saying that you had an experience, but you're not blaming me for it.
Yep.
So
you're
that
owning
like
your
owning
feelings.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not a victim. You're not an offender. You're not a rescuer. That's a cycle. We tend to exchange those roles in our relationships. Once you remove yourself from that, and you can have a huge impact on your surroundings, right? I mean, I'm responsible for everything. And even if I'm not, I'd rather just have that position, because the more responsible I am about myself and my surroundings, the more power I have. So whether or not it's true or not, I don't care. I just find that it ultimately makes my life better. Mm-hmm. So kind of like, do you want to be happy or right? I mean, whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. But, we tend to ignore the things that make things better out of principle.
I was in Atlanta, Georgia about 12 years ago at an advanced training that Landmark Education provided called Team Management Leadership Program. Mm-hmm. And I did that program for 3 years. And on stage was the most magnificent woman. Her name escapes me right now. She's originally from that area. She's African American. And she stood on stage and talked about this whole concept of being at cause in your world versus being a victim of it, owning everything, even if it's not true, but owning it because it empowers you to own it. And she stood there and said, it's a very charged area, Atlanta, Georgia, in terms of, racial, discrimination. And sure. I'm originally from Canada, which there's really not that. I don't have that experience as a Canadian. So coming into the States, I see it more than those who are already living here. Yeah. Because they expect it, I guess, because they grew up with it. So she stood there and she said, I own that slavery happened. I own it. It is because of me.
Interesting.
And she was really trying to rattle people's heads. And what she said is, I didn't physically owned slaves and lived, 300 years ago, right? But if I stand here today and I take ownership of it, now I have a place in which I can take action. What can I do from it? What can I do about it now? Because there are people walking around still angry about it and being victims of it and blaming others and feeling, and same with Native Americans. I mean, and they've been victimized by a government for hundreds of years, but that doesn't mean they have to be victims.
Yeah.
And so they can own what's happened, and then from there stand empowered, going, okay, now what are my choices? Now what actions can I take?
Yeah, this isn't a process of negating your feelings. If you're angry, if you don't like how someone's treating you, you're angry. I mean, be angry and say, screw this and get the hell away from it. I mean, be angry. Emotions are great things that cause actions. Like, you get fed up enough, you start making changes, right? But the thing that I can own is I can understand that my feelings are a result of what I believe. And the only way I would be angry is holding on to some negative belief about myself. I mean, that's where our emotions come from, based on our subconscious beliefs. And it all starts with what we believe about ourselves. And so I cannot like what triggered that. I don't have to stick around it just cause. And I am certainly welcome to have my feelings. That's my reality. But like you just said, I don't have to be a victim of it. I can empower myself by owning that. Absolutely. Yeah.
So another thing, because the mainstream media talks about how obesity is a disease, so they want to label it so they can do a surgery and make a pill for it, right? When we have clearly discussed that it is, it's the smoke, not the fire. It's the result of symptoms, not the root cause. It's not a disease. It is the end byproduct of something happening. It can attribute to diseases. But if we label it and we say, oh, I'm obese and it's a disease, we're also now a victim of a disease that has overtaken us.
I think there's a balance to it for me. Addiction is already labeled as a disease because it meets the criteria, being progressive and fatal, and there's a third criterion that I can't think of right now. But I do agree with you. It can be a way to excuse ourselves, right? And to give away some of our power, and as a result, make us feel a little bit better, even though it's not the reality of it. I think obesity is a disease. I think it is progressive. It is fatal. I think it fits the criterion of that. But that doesn't mean that there's not a method for dealing with it. I mean, cancer is a disease. If you saw somebody with cancer not taking their medicines and treatments, and then walking around all day complaining about how they got screwed and this and that, but not taking any effort in their healing, it'd probably be laughable to you, right? And I think that's the relationship we need to have, is that, okay, this is real. We need to take this seriously, and there's more to it, and we don't have to feel like we're to blame for it, but can't have our cake and eat it too. And there's another pun I didn't mean to use, but if you're going to blame something, right, and not do anything about it, right? I mean, there's probably not going to be a lot of people that are real excited to be around you, because they get tired of that. I mean, it reminds them of a lot of stuff that they feel a lot of injustice around. And so, my hope with every client, I don't have any issue with weight. I don't care. I have no moral. I'm not on a war against weight or a war against unhealthy foods. I love cheeseburgers and milkshakes and all these things. I'm just trying to present an opportunity for people to have a conscious opportunity to make a choice. I had a client one time that we worked together, and I like working with people where they're at. Like I said, I have no moral investment in the habits. I mean, I had a client who smoked cigarettes and had 6 beers a night, and this person didn't want to really work on that, and that's fine. So we did everything else we could. And then it came down to, and this was an older person, and and based on the naturopathic information that we got, it just looked like we had a well-informed decision to say, hey, if you really want the rest of this weight to come off, this is a habit you're basically going to have to put to the side. Not the smoking, but the drinking, right? If your focus is losing the weight. And right there, this person had the ability to finally make a conscious choice. They weren't the victim anymore. They had enough information where they could provide a solution. This person said, ultimately, it's not something I want to give up. I think that's great, because now you can go home and sit there and not torture yourself and say, I'm choosing this, right? I got nothing morally wrong with that. If that's what makes you happy, I'm not you, have at it. But that's what I really want for people, because I think most people don't have a solution. Because it's difficult. It takes a lot of effort to eliminate variables, and everybody's process is going to be different. That's why there's a million, diets out there. But at least have the opportunity to know that if you did want it, you would be able to do it, right? Now you're not a victim, and you can make that choice and not have to feel all that other stuff. Yeah.
Dr. Megan Saunders, who we've had on the show, says that, and she has a very similar style as you. As a doctor, she goes, I don't care if you go home and drink the gallon of milk. I care that you found out through naturopathic medicine that the gallon of milk a night is what was giving you heartburn.
Right.
And so now it's like the mystery. I want to help you solve the mystery, so you know what these symptoms, the reason why you're having these symptoms. You can go and make those choices for yourself, and you just know, hey, the root cause of my heartburn is I'm drinking a food that my body is allergic to. And now I get to choose whether I'm going to do it or not.
Yeah.
It's potentially destructive behavior, but at least now I'm in control and I don't have to worry about these symptoms.
Yeah.
And so then they're making their own choices for themselves.
Absolutely.
Knowing the outcome.
That's what I want. Personal freedom, right? I think we're all trying to expand our world, and we can only do that with information and knowledge and understanding, and we hold on to a lot of things without exploring them, and those are the things that torture us, right? I mean, they say you usually regret things that you don't do, right? And so I think there's a huge population out there of people around weight loss that are really tortured because they've never seen anything to give them the sense that it was even possible for them to have it the other way. And it's interesting to see people that actually see that there is that fork in the road and still choose to go that way. But at least they can be at peace now. And that's what I want from my clients. I want them to have a solution so that they can make a decision, and then they can get on with it, right? Because a lot of people put on some weight, and it's all they think about until they die, right? I mean, it's just this thing that tortures them forever. I know my own mother. My mother, I love her to death. She's an amazing person, and it's just something that has tortured her whole life. I mean, and it's something that's been passed on to her from, her family's beliefs about body image and everything like that. I mean, she was just conditioned to believe that, she had a weight issue, and it's funny, you look back and you're like, there was no problem here. But it's just this thing, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's just something, and there hasn't really been a solution that she's discovered yet, so it's just this constant thing. And I think a lot of women are just completely tortured by their body and weight, and based on a lot of cultural things that we project, right? So for men and women who have, tried 30 different diets, who have done everything, and they, at somewhere along the way, maybe lost hope or became a little bit jaded. They're hearing this now. They want to heal their relationship with their body, and they'd love to lose those 40 pounds. Those 40 pounds sound amazing. I know a lot of our listeners would go, wow, if only I could permanently, get the body I want. But I've failed so many times in the past. Yeah. So how do we speak to those people and have them not hold that against themselves and help them trust themselves again? Well, how do we help them trust themselves again? I think we're doing that now. I think we got to spread this message. There's something really wrong with the weight loss industry. You look at the numbers, 3 to 5% are being successful, $60 billion a year being spent. The numbers are going up. I mean, it's projected in the next 7 years now that 80% of the adults are going to be overweight and nearly half will be obese. And so we got to stop looking at this thing as our weakness, right? Something is going on, and maybe we're not giving this thing the respect it deserves. And I think the more we can shed a little bit of light on that, I mean, that 3 to 5% number for me just paints an incredibly large, neon bright sign that says, hey, we don't know anything about this, right? I mean, everything we feed into, there's so many blogs, these health blogs, they're everywhere on nutrition and this and that, and it's the same crap, and it's like maybe we need to focus on something different, right? I mean, there's a million diets that have been developed out there. That's not changing anything. We continue to get more and more scientific information, right? Biologically speaking, the numbers are still going up. So maybe we need to start cutting ourselves a break and just say, hey, this thing is difficult, and there's a lot going on. And I think, like I was saying at the beginning, dropping that shame as being that first step. I think if we could just cut ourselves a break, it's going to open up a lot of space, right, to breathe and move and just feel better.
Acknowledge yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I I got a client who works 50 hours a week, has 3 kids, drives them around everywhere. I mean, this person literally has no time and just destroys herself for not being disciplined enough or having the willpower and this and that. And it's like, man, I mean, that is not what I'm seeing, right? I mean, you're a very successful mother. Look at you providing this family. You got them in all these activities. You're getting them around. I mean, to say you're not good enough or unsuccessful or weak based off this one little aspect, that makes perfect sense. I mean, there's a good reason why it's happening. And to define ourselves based off that is just, it's ignorant, right? I mean, it's discriminatory. It's just a totally ignorant view of ourselves that makes us discriminate against ourselves. Because again, there's just a lot out there that's conditioning us to think that way.
We're like all violent offenders against ourselves.
Yeah, it's total ignorance. It's just to paint a picture of a person, based off this thing, like I said, that should be happening, right? It should be happening. So why do you feel bad about it? I mean, it doesn't mean we can't go in there and alter some things to change it, but this is what should be happening because of all these other things. So,
yeah, you related thinking about obesity as a disease and how what person is or is not doing about it to someone with cancer.
Yes.
And to correlate to your last point, which is the way we have it right now isn't working. The weight loss industry is not working. In what world would you invest how much was it? $60 million? What's
$60 billion
60 billion, okay.
A year.
In what world would you invest $60 billion and get 3 to 5% results? I mean, it's crazy. So in the cancer industry, I was recently with a very close friend of mine at her oncology appointment, and she was interviewing oncologists. And we were asking, all the questions, smart questions you'd ask an oncologist, like, well, what's the survival rate of this chemotherapy? And what are the side effects of chemotherapy? By the way, really ticked off the oncologist by simply asking, what are the side effects? Because she didn't want to be questioned. She said 0.5% of people within 5 years will develop leukemia. And my husband, who was with us, stood up and practically yelled, "That's 1 in 200 people. That's one. You went to high school with 3,000 people. You know what I mean? I mean, if you think about it, 1 in 200 people develop leukemia, which is pretty much fatal for an adult. And yet we totally let that cancer industry keep going the way it's going with very little success rate after 5 years.
Yeah.
For certain cancers, and tons of side effects for but their gold standard is, cut, burn, and poison. And it's illegal for an oncologist to practice natural medicine, to say, okay, well, let's not give you this, let's try something else because there's some great research on this.
Yep.
So we've got this
Hard
backward system that's not working. And then in the obesity industry, the weight loss industry, it's almost no results.
The problem is that they're looking at it as, okay, look at, using cancer, this treatment made this impact. That's hard information. But the problem with it is that there has to be a problem to show that impact. So there's nothing really to help point at the preventative medicine, because until there's a problem that exists, right, there's no results in their eyes. But they're missing the big picture, where it's like, hey, we don't even have to have this problem in the first place if we were doing this, right? And so to them, there's no evidence to support it, whereas they're missing the big picture, where it's like, there has to be a problem for your evidence to even exist, right? Rather than supporting the idea of just getting rid of the problem altogether. Yeah.
Right. Which is we're not looking at it. And then the mainstream sort of medical system doesn't want to look at preventive or look at, well, what's the really root cause? So I love that that's what you're addressing, because you're getting much better results, 20%, about 20% results.
Yeah, I'd say about 20%. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed having you on the show. You've brought up some amazing points. I'm going to have you back.
Yeah, I'd love to be back.
I want to talk about willpower the next time.
Yeah, we could talk on that.
And because I think we all are curious as to how to not feel guilty about not having any willpower.
Absolutely, yeah.
But please visit Steve's website by going to Flansbaum.com, STEVEFLANSBAUM.com. He's going to have a book coming out in the next 6 months. He has regular workshops. He also does Skype consultations. So, get in touch with him. You don't have to just be local in the Redmond, Washington area.
Locally, though, I do have a workshop coming up on Wednesday, April 27th in Redmond, Washington. So if anybody, listening, my contact information is on my website. They can contact me directly if they want to come, shake hands, hang out, and have a chat.
He'll give you a free ticket.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's complimentary. So
for those who contact you.
Well, for the workshop, yeah, absolutely, the whole thing. So anyway, just throwing that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I really encourage people to go to that. Sitting here with Steve, I think that everyone has a lot to learn and explore. And the fact that he's willing to do his own work. He's not standing up there on a stage with an ego going, I'm so great, listen to me and do what I say. He's done the work first, and he continues to do the work. And those are the kind of counselors you really want to lean on, are those who do their own work.
Yeah, I struggle immensely. And I still struggle. My drug addiction recovery, it's not over. It's something I have to deal with every day. And I'm glad that I struggle. It makes the connection with my clients much deeper because I struggle. And so I didn't know that, my baggage was going to turn into a resume, because a lot of people, are comfortable around me because, I'm really open about all the things that I have to face and the issues that I have. So, and I'm an open book. So if people want to bring their stuff in, it's definitely welcome. And my stuff is too. And there's a lot of healing in that, sharing that stuff. So.
Absolutely, yeah. Because I think one of the biggest fears of going to a counselor is being judged. Oh, they're perfect, and they're just going to judge me.
Not me.
Yeah, not Steve.
That's a promise, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, I hope to be back. Thank you.
How would you like to learn from top naturopathic physicians? Go to freedoctorcourse.com and sign up for the free course that'll email you videos with tips and tricks to achieving optimal health. That's freedoctorcourse.com. freedoctorcourse.com.